The Beyond the Fame podcast is fed by Lido Pizza. Lido Pizza never cuts corners. For menu and locations, visit LidoPizza.com. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our longtime title sponsor, the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes The Fray on April 26th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Tony nominee Melissa Errico stars in The Story of a Rose, a musical reverie on the Great War at the Schlesinger Concert Hall in Alexandria, Virginia on May 7th. She joined me to discuss how her great-aunt inspired the show and for a trip down memory lane of her greatest Broadway roles from My Fair Lady to Amour. Hey, Melissa Errico. Hey, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Hey, thank you.
We are talking to the one and only Tony nominee, Melissa Errico, because you're going to be starring in The Story of a Rose, a musical reverie on the Great War at the Schlesinger Concert Hall in Alexandria, Virginia on May 7th. So let's start with the premise. It's based on your great aunt Rose, who came from Italy to America during World War I, right?
Let me help you out first with the fancy French word. A musical reverie on the
Reverie.
No problem. Reverie comes from the French word rêve, which means to dream. So it's something of a dream. It's a little bit of a fantasy. You're dealing with the First World War here. So I was asked, because I do a lot of concerts, come out of Broadway, and I've been singing jazzy things for quite a while, that I opened for George Benson and been doing some jazz-inflected concerts and so on for well over a decade. I just really love cabaret and the jazz world, but there was a lot of early jazz in the First World War, and an amazing group of people in Washington whose interest is the First World War have asked me to make a concert about my family history. They were all very glamorous Italian immigrants and came over to the United States on a boat that was shipwrecked that ended up in Boston. They took a bus to the Bronx, and they ended up with a father who dropped dead in the customs shed, and the young teenage girls had to go out and make a living. They became seamstresses for the First World War. One of them, they were both gorgeous. One of them was uniquely gorgeous, and she was discovered during her night job as a waitress in a diner in the subway under the 33rd Street subway station, and she was discovered and became a Ziegfeld girl.
That's crazy.
And the vaudeville houses is where early jazz began, early American music. This is the dawn of jazz. This is the dawn of African-American jazz. This is the dawn of ragtime. This is the dawn of all the immigrants coming together and creating what we call now the Great American Songbook, which we now think of people like Ella Fitzgerald, all the great singers of the past. So this is the root of all that American history and American music. So because I have a cool family story with a glamorous avatar named Aunt Rose, who was a beautiful showgirl, because I have this history, I gave the opportunity some close consideration. And I thought, well, I don't know much about the First World War, honestly, but I know that I love history and I love music history. I love the American songbook. What we all think about when we think of cool jazz songs that even Lady Gaga is singing these days, that was mostly the 30s and 40s into the 50s. But this is right before. This is what made all that music.
This teed all of that up.
It keyed it all up. It's called Tin Pan Alley. I called it a reverie because it's a little bit of a dream. Like it's a dream as if I was back at that time.
Ah, okay.
So
all right.
It's a little bit of a fantasy, and it's as if I was Aunt Rose in that time. She did not dance in the actual follies of the First World War year of 1917, but I say, I let you know this is a review and a reverie. But so I push myself back in time slightly, but using the whole world of the Follies, which I've actually been doing for years and years. I've always been interested in her and interested in this style of work and singing, feather boas and glamorous American immigrants and so on. Sondheim wrote a musical about it called Follies.
Yeah, the Ziegfeld Follies. I just revisited the Best Picture 1936. The great Ziegfeld was,
Exactly. So
and
funny.
Fanny Brice was playing herself in it, and you had William Powell as Ziegfeld and Myrna Loy as Billy Burke. Before they did Nick and Nora Charles, the Thin Man, they were in that movie portraying the Ziegfeld. It was
Well, you're a
great.
movie guy. Yeah, everybody comes at these things from a different angle. You're a filmmaker, you're obviously a screenwriter as well, and a film guy, so you're going to think of these films. But when the First World War happened, there was silent films, but there were no talking films. If you ever wanted to hear the popular music of the time, there was no radio.
Yeah.
Never mind talking movies. There was just the beginning of electric lights and horseless carriages.
Yeah. No podcasts.
No podcasts, obviously no phones,
Yeah.
So they would go to the vaudeville houses to hear the popular music. The other thing that's interesting is that in the old days, in this time, which is 1914 to 1918, that's all the songs I'm learning and singing. If you wanted to hear the music, you would go to the vaudeville houses, the Follies, and see these beautiful women and these funny comedians, and you'd hear people sing, or everybody bought sheet music and you knew how to play.
Right.
Like everybody had a piano in their parlor. We've become so lazy, with Spotify.
I know. And people actually knew how to read back then. They knew how to play instruments. We got so lazy.
It's really embarrassing, actually. We should be ashamed of ourselves.
We should. Dang it.
We should. And
that's why you got to come to this show and learn.
Yeah, come to my show to learn. And it's an interesting story because if you don't know much about the First World War, I'm going to tell you, I'm learning as I go as well. And the songs were telling so much about what America was going through. They were sensing this war coming. There were songs against the war, like I Didn't Raise My Boy to Be a Soldier is one of the songs. And then another song called Let's All Be Americans Now, because you had so many people from everywhere. You had Jewish and Polish and Italian and Irish, all these people. Well, there's a song called Let's All Be Americans Now, because they had to come together. It's the first time that the United States was as diverse as it was. It was a huge period of immigration. And it's the first time that we as a diverse country came together under one flag and fought across the sea, overseas. It's the beginning of the world, really.
Yeah, as we know it, for sure. Well, and they were dealing with their own pandemic a century ago anyway, at that point.
Yes.
Spanish flu.
The flu killed so many soldiers,
Yeah.
So I wear 3 costumes in this. The whole first section is set in the Follies. I'm wearing the most extraordinary, interesting clothes, and I bring a feather boa out that I pull. It's like the women were quite, extraordinary, but the boa will never end. It just goes off stage, and I'm going to pull it. And so it should be quite fun, and you'll get a feeling for the music and that musical style. And I'll tell stories about the Italian immigrants. I sing in Italian. There was some very funny characters in my family history that I'll bring to life. My great-grandfather was a haberdasher, and he made top hats for a living. And by the time he arrived in America with 5 children, he had already blown through all the family money because he had taken the top hat business to Africa. And he was trying to sell top hats in Ethiopia. And so the business failed, unsurprisingly.
The international haberdashery was not working out.
Yeah, exactly. Like how many Ethiopians needed a top hat at that time. So, so he was a real jerk, and he came, he blew through their money, and he was always wearing top hats and had fancy mustaches and things. So he's the guy who died. Then the young girls were seamstresses for the war. There's wonderful music about women making uniforms. There's a song called Sister Susie's Sewing Shirts for Soldiers.
That's not a tongue twister. Look at the alliteration. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister. So these are all really jazzy songs. And then you have all the classic, you have the debate songs about whether we should join the war or not, pacifistic songs and anti-war songs, pacifist songs. And as the war progresses, the music halls of America were getting the music hall music from London and they were hearing it. And those were marching songs, like things your mother and father probably would know. Things like "It's a long way to Tipperary."
Well, they sang that at the end of Mary Tyler Moore, the finale, right? Yeah.
Oh, is that what they did?
Yeah, they march out of the newsroom singing that anyway. But you're
But
talking, this is the era of like George M. Cohen, right? Like Over There, all that kind of
yes,
stuff. Yeah.
yes. So that's how we finished the first act, because he was a great song and dance man, George M. Cohen, and he wrote a song for all Americans to share once we decided to go to war. And we decided to go to war in part because there was a ship called the Lusitania that sank.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that started the whole thing.
That started the whole thing. And a lot of the music of my show is Irving Berlin and Jerome Kern. And famously, Jerome Kern had a ticket for the Lusitania, and he went out partying the night before, and he was so drunk and so hungover that he overslept his alarm clock, and he famously missed the boat.
Really?
Yes, that's all. So my show is full of like fun showbiz kind of stories.
Whoa.
And yet there we are. That the boat he missed was called the Lusitania.
Whoa. I didn't realize Jerome Kern, the legendary Jerome Kern, songwriter. I did not know he was going to be on the, think about all the great music we would have lost if he was on the Lusitania.
I'm telling you, there's an internet site for everybody. There's an internet site for the 30 important people who were supposed to be on the Lusitania and who missed it.
Whoa.
Isadora Duncan was one of them.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It's a very interesting list.
So the sinking of that, I guess, paired with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. Those two things, I think, started at, well, at least Lusitania got us involved.
Lusitania got America there.
Got America. So, it was the Pearl Harbor of World War I, basically, for us.
Oh gosh, I should have met you a year ago because I needed all this. Now I know what you're talking about. A year ago, I'm drowning.
We're just dropping random references. Hey, but I didn't know about Jerome Kern being on almost being on the Lusitania. That's incredible.
Yeah, he missed it. So then we finished the first act with Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun, because now we're in Over There, and without giving away too much, the entire military is going to come down the aisles.
Do you actually sing Over There?
Yeah, that's the end of the first act.
Oh, it is. All right. And it won't be over till it's over there.
Over there. Dun, dun, bum, bum, bum.
I just know the James Cagney stuff, the Yankee Doodle
all
Dandy.
the boys are going to flood into the theater.
That's great. So wait, well, that's a good segue then. So what is why Virginia? Is it because, the Pentagon's there and the Gary Sinise Foundation? We interview him almost every Memorial Day concert. He comes back and brings his Lieutenant Dan band. There's a big military presence. And I guess it's produced by the Doughboy Foundation, presented by Gary Sinise Foundation, I should clarify. Is that the Virginia connection?
Well, the Virginia connection is that we were due to be at the Kennedy Center, and that we were premiering this at the Kennedy Center. And
what happened there? That hadn't been in the news.
I don't know. Well, our producers are excited to have moved because we got more sponsors. And so we have now this huge concert hall, which is even bigger than the Kennedy Center. And it's just a nice, kind of more neutral space where there's no, everybody's invited, left, right, center. Yeah. Let the whole world come. This is a story that should belong to everybody and not be in any kind of controversy or any kind of a fraught space. And patriotism is a tricky thing these days. And this is a patriotic show. It's a very respectful show. And it's a fun show because there's so many colorful, wonderful musicians and artists that wrote music to bring it to life, to support morale, to, yes, propaganda, but yes, sometimes pacifism, entertainment, to lift spirits, to capture people's hearts at the time. It's music is like glue. It connects us to history. And if I sing it, then the people of the past can live again.
I love it.
It's a dream. I'm bringing the past. It's like you're going to go back in a dream. You're going to wake up and say, what did she just do? Did I just go back to World War I? But everyone was, the war, in the Follies, we sometimes sing songs that were written in the war about the soldiers' experiences. Irving Berlin was a corporal in the 152nd Brigade of the U.S. Army. And he's obviously a great Tin Pan Alley and jazz writer. Irving Berlin wrote a lot of music about what it felt like to be at the war in war. Yeah. And the boys were children. And of course they didn't want to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed. For the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You've got to get up, you've got to get up, you've got to get up this morning.
Nice.
They're boys. They didn't want to get up. So what happens is we do the Follies. We have all the music that anticipated the war, the over there, the Tipperary. Then in the second act, much more about what it was like to be a soldier and soldier songs. James Reese Europe is represented. James Reese Europe is the greatest American musician that we all should know about, African-American man who had a jazz band first ever at Carnegie Hall in this era. And he pretty much brought jazz to Europe. He's credited with bringing jazz to Europe. He's an amazing American hero, both as a soldier and as a musician. And we have learned his music and two songs. And one of his songs is called On Patrol in No Man's Land.
Oh.
And it's a jazz song that catches the sounds of war. And it's not a nice song to sing. It's got, what's the time? 9. Fall in line. All right, boys, now take it slow. Are you ready? Steady. And there's all this percussion. It's jazz, but it's all about bombs going off, lowering your head, covering each other.
Because he served with the Harlem Hellfighters, right?
That's right. That's right. And the Harlem Hellfighters were the most tenacious, ferocious, successful soldiers imaginable. And so they brought jazz to Europe and they outshone. Well, they didn't outshine. Everybody did their part, but they were outstanding soldiers. So it's an honor to learn their music. And we have a amazing band. We have a band of all colors, and we're gonna kill it. My band is gonna kill it. They're gonna do so brilliantly with the jazz of James Europe's time and work. So we're doing that. And then sometimes we have one fallback to the Follies during the war. During the war Follies, all those sexy, fun songs with the boas, they change. All the lyrics have soldiers in it. They say things like, if he can fight like he can love, oh, what a soldier boy he'll be.
That's
if he's
great.
just half as good in a trench as he was in the park on a bench.
That's so great.
It's so sexy and it's really jazzy. And it's all about, getting people to enjoy the Follies, but think of the war and get behind the war. And so anyway, we have some pretty cool stuff. And
yeah, it sounds like it. And it's all under the musical direction of jazz pianist Ted Firth. So
that's
you're
right.
not going to miss it.
The best. And where you really see Ted's gifts is the third part of the show, which is I step out of costume. I'm in contemporary black, beautiful black pants and his beautiful jumper. And George goes in. I have a co-star, a young man who's helping me with some scenes and appears in some of the songs. We're in contemporary dress. And at that point, I sing some pretty modern music.
Oh, okay.
Based on Irish traditional music, songs that are commonly sung at war memorials, but we give it a kind of fresh, modern feeling. So the reverie turns into a respectful memorial, but a little bit, hopefully raw. I weep when I'm singing. I love this music.
And intentionally anachronistic, it's modern but placed back in this tale of World War I. But it all, past, present, and future. I truly believe there's no such thing. I think they're all sort of interweaving in ways we don't really like it.
If it was a movie, I am Aunt Rose now, right? She passes through to me. I am now a showgirl on stage, and I'm passing this history to my own. I have 3 daughters, so it's a serious entertainment. It's an entertainment, though. It is. It's going to be sexy and funny and stylish. And Jason, what I really think I have done over the year and a half is I've used what I am and what I know, which is the Follies and my personal history and the theater and music, to write something that taught me about the importance of the military.
Yeah.
I used what I know to make the show about other people and about the military. I think I've used my language to develop a great respect for the First World War and all the soldiers that have ever served in the country. I mean that quite sincerely. I can barely get through a conversation with my parents. He served in Vietnam, my father.
Right.
But I have increased my respect by studying and using the language I best understand, which is style and glamour and jazz and this and that. But in the end, the star of the show is the military.
Absolutely. And I think I saw on the website for the show that military and veterans and first responders, I think they might even get 80% off their tickets. So double check me, everybody, but it's
It's
exactly
true.
what you're saying. It's all about respect. Well, I mean, I think we thoroughly did a huge deep dive into the show and all the inspiration and the music and the costumes, and it's going to be great. I don't know if you have time, I would love to remind our listeners some of your career highlights if you don't mind. Do we got time?
No, of course I do. Of course
All
I
right,
do.
awesome. So you're talking about, in the show, you're flashing back to the Great Ant, but we're gonna flash back to the beginnings of Melissa's
My
life
little
and
life.
career. So yeah,
Okay.
so you were born in New York City in 1970. So I assume growing up in New York City, you grew up going to Broadway shows. Like, did you have any favorites growing up?
I did. I did. I didn't grow up going to Broadway shows all the time. My father and mother, uh, they did like shows, but they also took me to classical music. My father used to play Michel Legrand music in the house. He was a pianist
Yeah.
and a doctor. They took me to some shows. Certain shows like Annie didn't do it for me. Bye Bye Birdie. I don't know if I even saw that, but that style. But one day when I was 12, they took me to see On Your Toes.
Ooh.
And Jason, I don't know if this happened for you for um, filmmaking and
Yeah.
all your other skills, but I looked at the stage watching On Your Toes at the Virginia Theater. It was my 12th birthday, and I was overwhelmed. I knew we had a Ziegfeld girl in the family. I knew my grandmother was a singer,
Yeah.
but these particular voices, it was jazz, it was Rodgers and Hart, and I started to cry. And I turned to
Wow.
my mother and I said, "Who are these people? How did they get up here?"
Yeah.
Up there. It was like I was seeing outer space and wanted to go up to the moon.
And this is the Virginia Theater in New York on Broadway, folks. Not to be confused with the
Right.
Virginia,
Oh, yes, it's a Broadway
that we
theater
just talked about here. Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
51st Street. Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
on 51st Street in New York City, across the street from where Wicked is playing now.
So
And
awesome.
if you can imagine, 10 years later, I was 22
Yeah.
years old. I had gone to college. I had already been in Les Mis
Yeah.
playing Cosette. I had done another Broadway show called Anna Karenina. And by the
Yeah.
time I was 22, I'm not bragging, this is just a mystical fact.
Go
I
for it.
was starring on Broadway in My Fair Lady on the same stage.
Yeah. That's crazy. And that would have been the 1993 revival of My Fair Lady on Broadway as Eliza Doolittle. And I want to get there in one second, but I do want to ask real quick. You said the Les Mis. Weren't you were at Yale at the time and you kind of left because you had the chance to do Cosette in the tour of Les Mis and then you returned to finish your degree? Is that how it happened? It was during college?
You're so kind to have done such research. That is true. I was 18. I arrived at Yale. I was an art history major, planning to also minor in philosophy, which I ended up doing both of those things, went
Right.
back later. But in the middle of my freshman year, I was thinking in advance about the summer, and I wanted to make sure I had lots of summer theater to do. I was doing plays at Yale, and I went into New York City to audition for summer theater, the very first wave that was coming in. And I was auditioning for George M. Theater by the Sea,
Hmm.
the part that made Bernadette Peters famous. I'm known
Hey, I
for
heard of her.
you heard of her. I known for lots of curly hair, and I thought, okay, I could do that, and I could probably tap dance. And so I was auditioning for that. I was standing in the hallway with all that Victorian hair, and the director of Les Mis saw me in the hall, even though I was in tap shoes and shorts.
Yeah.
He said, "Cosette, would you come in and audition for Les Mis?" I was discovered in the hallway.
Wow. That's so wild. That's so cool that
It's so
he just
wild.
he said you're gonna be my Cosette.
Have a vibe of Cosette.
That's
And
awesome.
so I went in the room. I didn't know the music. That's where luck and preparation meet.
Yeah.
That was lucky. I realize now how lucky I was because now I'm older and I've had a lot more, frustration. But I was, these are charmed and charming days.
But you got
This
to be ready when the moment of opportunity, it's the opportunity meets preparation. Luck is involved, but you have to be ready and have had put in your 10,000 hours or whatever and be ready for it.
Yeah,
Um,
I had 10,000 hours, if not of preparation, but dreaming. So
yeah, exactly.
then I went back to college. I
Yeah.
graduated. Then I did two more shows, Anna Karenina and My Fair Lady, and then a whole bunch of other shows I've done on Broadway, like
Oh, yeah. Well, I wanted to
Yeah.
ask about playing in My Fair Lady across from, well, the late Richard Chamberlain, who just died a couple weeks ago, sadly. He was your Henry Higgins, and then you also had Stanley Holloway's son, Julian Holloway, doing the whole "get me to the church on time" stuff. So yeah, I mean, memories of working across from those two figures, especially Richard. And rest in peace. Memorialize Richard here for a second.
Yeah, totally. No, he was incredible and a wonderful preparation too to get to do it. I did it again with Roger Daltrey from The Who playing my father and
And John Lithgow, right?
John Lithgow.
Yeah.
I mean, I was older then and I did it at the Hollywood Bowl for 20,000 people a night in the audience, and it was so much fun. I think that part, really defined my whole life. And it taught me a lot. She's a real cool person because she was poor. She knocked on the door and she wanted lessons.
Yeah.
And I love that she represented herself so well. She says, I've come to have lessons, I have, and to pay for them too, make no mistake. So she has money, what does she say? I want to be a lady in a flower shop instead of selling flowers at the corner of Tottenham Court Road. But they won't take me unless I can talk more genteel. Well, here I am, ready to pay, and he treats me as if I was dirt. So she's
Still remember the lines. That's great. See, most
love it.
people can do the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plane, but you're going deep. It's awesome.
Oh my God, you're a bird of a feather. So it's a wonderful character, and I love that she was actually rather independent spirited even before she got what she needed to get out of her class. She already had self-esteem. She had money, she wanted lessons, she wanted to advance. She didn't have a lot of hang-ups. She just had a dirty clothes and didn't speak right. But she knew that and she wanted to get better. And I think that the key to getting older for me is you got to be willing to knock on the door and ask for lessons. I've come to have lessons, I have, and to pay for them too, make no mistake. Keep asking, keep knocking on the door. And that, I think, she sort of set the pace for me to keep trying new things. I've had so many, wonderful experiences in theater, off Broadway, the encores. I've done so many things in television and film. I've had 3 children. They're grown. I'm really a mother of a college student and 2 16-year-old girls. And I still have ideas and creativity. And this show that we're here to talk about is one of those things. I'm still knocking on the door,
Of course. It's great. It's great advice. And if there's any, young aspiring, actors or performers or singers listening to this, that's great advice. Repeat that Eliza Doolittle, that slogan.
Believe in yourself. Take a chance, knock on a door. And if the door doesn't open, there's another door.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're sort of tight on time, so maybe I'll have to just list some of the other great roles just for our listeners so they know the caliber of everything you've been in. Not all of them, but some of the highlights. You were Tracy in High Society, the Grace Kelly role. Betty in White Christmas, back to Irving
Oh,
Brilliant.
it's all the movies.
Fiona and Brigadoon. Guinevere and Camelot. Nancy and Oliver. That's like the Papa, right? Dang
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yes.
Damn that
Yes.
Bill Sykes. But I want to ask you about the Kennedy Center revival of Sondheim Sunday in the Park with George, because that was, well, Burnett Peters, I guess, originated, but you do that role, and this is 2002, and you get a Helen Hayes nomination, right? So I figured I'd ask about that because that's a local tie-in. Any fond memories of that?
I've been to the Washington area quite a bit. I've toured My Fair Lady there. I toured, I think we toured some other thing. I've toured some other things there. But yes, I did the Sondheim musical there, Sunday in the Park with George at the Kennedy Center. I've also worked with the National Symphony Orchestra quite a bit, and I've performed all my albums. I have a bunch of studio albums at Wolf Trap, at the Barns, as well as outside. So
Wolf Trap's awesome. It's so good.
So awesome. The Barns is amazing. The outside is amazing.
Yep.
So it's an absolute thrill to come to the Washington area again. The Sondheim thing really kicked off an obsession with Sondheim, which I continue to have, and I'm going to make my solo concert hall debut this summer doing a Sondheim concert in London.
That is going to be awesome. That is going to be awesome.
So life is good. Life is pretty good.
I do want to get into some of those solo concert / cabaret type stuff, but we have to mention, we'd be remiss if we don't mention your Tony nomination. Best Lead Actress in a Musical for Broadway's Amour. Lost to Hairspray, but who cares? That won everything that year. But you know what? You won because you work with Michel Legrand, those great old Jacques Demy musicals, Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
You and I think a lot of my work actually has a beautiful cinematic parallel in it, which is interesting. You're making me think I should do the movies as some kind of a tribute that has a cinematic flair.
That's just because that's how I view everything. I just think of through movies. So yeah, keep noodle that a little bit and think of maybe there's like a concert you could do.
Yeah, there's a concert here. I did Meet Me in St. Louis, and I've also done One Touch of Venus, which was a wonderful show.
Yeah.
Rita Hayworth. And then I'm very interested in another Rita Hayworth thing called Rain, Sadie Thompson. It's about this mysterious woman on a ship and, you know.
Yes, I think the ideas are percolating. There's something there. And we've in your career great. But I did want to ask about Michelle Legrand. I mean,
I hate to interrupt you, but I'm getting kicked out, I think, by another rehearsal. What time does your rehearsal
no.
I booked it for 6 to 7.
Okay.
Sure. I can go down and check.
Just check.
She is a Tony nominee. Do you know who she is? Do you know who you're kicking out of this rehearsal space?
Sorry, I'm on there.
I'm totally kidding. Okay. All right. Well, that is actually hilarious. I love when real life intrudes. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting kicked out because there's more artists that need to rehearse.
There's another rehearsal here. I'm telling you, is that not a metaphor for show business? Like, you're a star, you're sitting down with this great young man, with Jason, and I'm, but then there's always more ingenues that keep coming in. There's another 100 people just got off of the train and came up to the ground, while another 100 people just got off of the bus and they're looking around.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
New York City. It's
like Margot Channing is getting the hook and Eve Harrington's coming in. I mean, it's a cycle. And now they're kicking us out. But,
it's a cycle. But that's why I say, you got to keep laughing in this city. So I guess I am getting kicked out. But it's been a pleasure talking to you. And I can't wait to meet you again.
Again, everyone, check out The Story of a Rose, a musical. I'm going to butcher it again. Reverie. A musical reverie on the Great War at the Schlesinger Concert Hall in Alexandria, Virginia on May 7th. Melissa, I really appreciate it. This has been great.
I agree. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.